Hi, welcome to this video on the relationship between the short and average cost curve and the long and average cost curve. So let's get stuck straight in. So here I've got a company and I'm going to say that it's producing 500 units to start off with. There we go. And I'm going to label the point on the long and average cost curve where it is as point A. And the way that we're producing at point A 500 units is to use 20 units of capital and 40 units of labour. And then let's say demand increases. I actually want to increase my output to 1,000 units. There we are, I'm going to label that point B. And the best way of producing 1,000 units is to use 35 units of capital and 60 units of labour. Now you can see that I've increased my output from 500 to 1,000. So I've doubled my output, but I haven't doubled my inputs. So my average cost must have fallen. So you can see that on the graph, and you can see, yes, I am benefiting from economies of scale, which is what the graph shows. So that's fine. So I've got my optimal factor combination at point A for 500 units and my optimal factor combination at point B for 1,000 units. The problem is that I can't move straight from A to B. This is a long run average cost curve, and in the long run, all my factors of production are variable, so I'm free to choose the optimal factor combination. Unfortunately, in the short run, I'm slightly stuck. In the short run, and there's going to be an interim point C, I'm stuck with, there we go, I'm stuck with 20 units of capital. So they're my fixed factor production. So the only way that I can produce 1,000 units with only 20 units of capital is to overcompensate in terms of labour. So I'm actually going to employ 120 workers in the short run until my new machinery comes in, because it takes me time to source and buy new machinery. So that's going to mean a more expensive way of producing 1,000 units, because remember, the best way of producing 1,000 units is to use 35 capital and 60 labour. But I'm stuck with 20 capital, I'm using 120 labour. So I've got to move from point A, which I didn't label properly, not to B in the short run, but to C in the short run. Let's see if I can do some sort of short run average cost curve. There we go. So I move from A to point C, and then in the long run, when I can buy and pay for this machinery and it comes in, I can then move from point C down to point B. So I eventually arrive at point B, but not straight away. So that's fine. So I'm now producing 1,000 units, and I'm using 35 capital and 60 labour. I'm at point B at the moment. And then let's say demand drops off again, and I actually want to go back to producing 500 units. Let's see if I can just change the colour of my pen here, just so to avoid confusion. There we go, so I've gone to a blue. So again, I can't just move from B to A because it takes me time to get rid of my capital. There's going to be an interim point while I'm stuck with the amount of capital I had at B. Okay, let's label that D now. I could go to 35 capital and the 40 labour that eventually I want at A, but maybe having some extra machinery does mean I don't need quite so many people, even though it's more expensive. So let's see at point B, I'm going to have 35 capital and 35 labour. I'm going to be producing 500 units, but it's going to be more expensive than it would be if I was at point A with my optimal factor combination. So let's label point D up there. That should be above 500 units. So again, there's a short run average cost curve. It goes between points B, let's label it like that, and point D. So I move from B to D in the short run, and then in the longer run, as I manage to sell off my machinery, employ a few more workers, I move from D down to A. And the point is that anywhere that you are on the long run average cost curve, and anywhere you'd like to move to, you're going to have to move along a short run average cost curve first of all. So you can be producing many more units. There we are, and there's another short run average cost curve. And then to reduce output, we go up the short run average cost curve to start off with to a point on the short run average cost curve. And then in the long run, move back down to the long run average cost curve. From every point, and these are all supposed to be just touching, every point on the long run average cost curve, a short run average cost curve is born, basically. And I hope you can see how I've drawn it, especially with my first short run average cost curve. It doesn't have to be the lowest point of a short run average cost curve that touches the long run average cost curve, and it won't be always. But there will always, at every point on the long run average cost curve, be a short run average cost curve that is a tangent to the long run average cost curve. So I hope that's clear. If it isn't, leave some comments and I'll try and answer them. But I hope you found that useful. Thank you.